Good morning, I'm Diane Macedo. Thanks for streaming with us. In today's update, as a new winter storm makes its way up the East Coast, more than 600,000 people are still without power in hard-hit Texas. Some 7 million are also under orders to boil water because treatment plants are without power. Frozen pipes are bursting inside homes. And take a look at this image. Icicles hanging from a ceiling fan in a Dallas apartment building. Now, new storm warnings are in effect from Florida to Massachusetts, while the South braces for dangerous flooding and possible tornadoes. Our senior meteorologist, Rob Marciano, is standing by with the latest. The CDC says the pandemic has taken a year off of Americans' life expectancy. A baby born today is expected to live an average of 77.8 years. That's the lowest since 2006. The numbers are based on data from January to June of 2020, so they don't include the recent winter surge in COVID cases, meaning we could see that number drop even lower. And new jobless numbers show 861,000 people filed for unemployment benefits last week. That's higher than expected. Keep in mind, before the pandemic, weekly applications for unemployment had never topped 700,000. But we begin with the extreme weather hitting so much of the country. 10 states and the District of Columbia are under states of emergency declarations right now. All federal offices are closed in Washington, D.C. as that storm moves up the East Coast. Our Rob Marciano is there this morning. Rob, good morning. Time this out for us. What can we expect as this storm comes through?
You know, Diane, I think the biggest problem with this storm, it is so elongated, and there are multiple mid and upper level pulses that are going to kind of keep this thing going on for a little bit longer than we'd like. It's sleeting right now here in D.C. The roads aren't too bad, but they're certainly slick. I mean, we got about an inch or so of sleet that's piled up here over the last several hours. And just north of us, it's more of a snow sleet in Philly. And then you get into New Jersey. We'll show you some pictures from there, the Garden State Parkway. It is all snow. And there's a good thumping of snow right across the Garden State there. Not looking very gardeny, very white, and very slow go on the parkway there. And we're just starting now with this system as far as how much frozen precip is going to be falling across the D.C., the Baltimore, the Philly, the New Jersey and New York and Boston area. You can see that second pulse kind of coming through tonight and tomorrow morning. So we're not done with this yet. In North Carolina, you're in the mix. We've got a flood threat down to the south, and we've got a severe weather threat as well with the tornado watch down across the Florida Panhandle. As far as the snow accumulations are concerned, we expect to see anywhere from 4 to 8 inches, maybe 10 inches in some spots, anywhere within 100 miles of New York City. And then the ice from here down across Virginia could be significant, Diane. So that's what's going on with this first part of this storm. And, of course, what's going on in Texas is just horrific, Diane.
Yeah, and, Rob, let's talk about that a little bit, because the images out of Texas are heartbreaking. We're seeing pleas for help on Twitter. So when can people there expect some relief from this cold?
Well, they're more than ever, as far as the weather scenario is concerned, they need temperatures to get above the freezing mark, because that is seemingly what has frozen the electrical infrastructure there. It's going to take another day or two before that happens. And a matter of fact, there's another pulse of wintry precip coming through the Lone Star State right now. I mean, there you see some of the images coming out of Austin, the capital of Texas, with where they do have power. They've got icicles that are flying around some of the fans there. But another pulse of moisture coming through the Rio Grande today, with another coating of ice through tonight, before we start to see this long-lasting cold pattern begin to shift. And by the time we get to this weekend, look at these numbers, Diane. We'll be above freezing in Dallas and Houston tomorrow. That is key. But a massive shift Saturday and Sunday. So basically, we just have to hold on another 24 hours here in Texas before we see significant improvement, and they can put this nightmare behind them and hopefully learn from it in the future, Diane.
Another 24 hours, definitely a challenge for those right now without heat and without water. Rob Marciano in D.C., thank you. And turning now to a story of perseverance. After spending his childhood picking produce on a farm, Jose Hernandez went on to make history as an astronaut at NASA. Kana Whitworth has a look at his remarkable journey.
I started off working on the land, a land that wasn't mine. I worked for other farmers, picking just about any fruit and vegetable that grows here in the valley. You name it, if they grow it here, we picked it, including grapes.
Jose Hernandez spent his entire childhood working alongside his parents in these California fields, picking strawberries, cherries, onions, and cucumbers.
Cucumber grows low, so you're always on your back picking, and your bucket, filling your bucket, and then you got to go and empty it and get your little chip that you then turn in for payment. And it's hard work. But, you know, by about 11 o'clock in the morning, you're done. And, you know, if you did very well, you could make 50, 60 bucks.
But this is his land now.
And it represents, to me, it represents life.
Every year, his family would travel from Mexico to California, spending months at a time doing hard labor.
It's the only life we knew, and to me, it was normal. It wasn't a tough life. That's why I think my work ethic came from.
Still learning English, Jose excelled in math and science, and by 10 years old, he knew that he wanted to be an astronaut after watching the last Apollo mission on TV. It was 1972, and he told his dad about his dream.
I think what he saw was the determination of a 10-year-old boy. That he did two things that changed the course of my life, I think. First thing is he validated the dream. He empowered me to believe I can do it. He said, because the first thing that he said is, I think you can do it. I mean, that is powerful from a parent to a 10-year-old. When he empowered me, I believed him.
I work very hard so I can have all my children to be somebody, and it looks like everyone has been professional now. All four of them. Yeah, I'm really proud of all of them.
The youngest of four kids, he graduated high school in 1980, then earning a degree in electrical engineering from the University of the Pacific. 2 years later, completing his master's degree. He began working at the Lawrence Livermore National Laboratory, where he was instrumental in the invention of the mobile mammogram machine. During his time there, he began applying to NASA, a process that would take him 12 years. He was rejected 11 times.
And so I reached this final 100, not once, not twice, but 3 times.
And, you had made it that far 3 times.
3 times I was in the final 100, so you could almost taste it.
In a sea of more than 12,000 candidates, he was finally selected in 2004.
So don't be so quick to give up on your dreams if you failed once or twice. Sure, failure doesn't feel good. Sure, rejection doesn't feel good. But if you prepare yourself, you come back stronger, and eventually you'll get there.
2 years later, he got his wings, and in 2009, he was the flight engineer on the STS mission on spatial discoveries, flying a 14-day mission to the International Space Station. He became the first-generation Mexican-American astronaut, and he also sent the first tweet from space in Spanish.
I tweeted for all the countries, especially the U.S., Mexico, and the Latin American countries, good luck in the upcoming qualifying rounds for the World Cup, and see you at the World Cup.
At the end of his 14-day mission, weather changed their flight path, forcing them to land in California instead of Florida.
On the landing site of Edwards Air Force Base, I always call it poetic justice. Why? Because it's about 80 miles from where I used to pick strawberries in the Ontario Chino area.
Main gear touchdown.
Were there people on your way up that doubted you because of your background?
I guess the short answer is yes. You perceived that. It wasn't very blatant, but you perceived it. But I also think it also had to do a lot with having an imposter syndrome. Sometimes you can't help and you say, hey, do I really belong here?
A husband and father of 5, Jose left NASA in 2011, moving back to Stockton, running his consulting business, investing his time in the community, and buying his own land. Tending to the vines near where his entire family worked for years.
We were out here because we had to be here. You know, it was a matter of survival. Now we're here because we enjoy it.
Yeah. Bottling the first vintage of Tierra Luna wines in March.
It has a double meaning. Tierra Luna, my wife thought of the name for her restaurant because it meant Earth, Moon, Grill. But it also has a double meaning because tierra in Spanish not only means earth, it also means dirt.
And while his life remains on this planet for now, he's again inspired by the latest mission to Mars.
Do you feel like, I mean, I knew it was the hardest decision of your life, but ultimately the right one for you to leave. But when you watch stuff like this, you miss it a little bit?
Oh, yeah, I miss it a lot. I miss it a lot. And, you know, I understand, you know, once you leave NASA as an astronaut, you're never going to go back. I understand that part. But you never know. I mean, you got SpaceX, you got Virgin Galactic, you got Blue Origin. All these companies have their own vehicles and may want to have experienced astronauts lead some of the missions, whether they're for tourism or for other efforts that they're trying to do. And so, you know.
So you're leaving the door open.
Yeah, exactly. The phone may ring one. Yeah, I'm still in pretty good shape. So, I'm hoping, you know, one day the phone rings and says, "Hey, Jose, you know, have we got an opportunity for you?" I'll say, "Hey, put me in, coach. I'm in."
Now, his inspiring life story is being made into a movie. Netflix plans on shooting early summer or spring. Diane.
Love that, Kana. And Kana, when you were talking to him, meeting him, hanging out with him in person, what did you feel stood out to you the most when you heard his story from him?
You know, Diane, it's the story of his second grade teacher, honestly. She changed the course of his life dramatically because when he was in second grade, his parents told him, you know, go get your 3 months of homework. We're hitting the road for work again. And his second grade teacher came to their home and said that education needs to be a priority. You need to consider the future for your children. And right then and there, everything changed, and they stayed in Stockton, and look at what happened. And of course, his kids are going on to be successes as well. Diane, he has one child getting his PhD right now. So it's just an incredibly inspiring story all around and for all generations.
It really is. And it was interesting to hear him say that he suffered from imposter syndrome, always questioning, do I really belong here? You know, what do you take away from that when you think about all the doubt that he had and yet what he ended up accomplishing?
You know, Diane, that struck me too, and my producer, Lisette, as well. We were both struck by the fact that he felt this imposter syndrome despite the fact that he had all of these degrees and he had all these successes in his life. He still sometimes questioned because he hadn't really seen anybody else do it before. Do I really belong here? And I think that that's something that we see a lot of times, Diane, in these trailblazers, people that are doing something for the very first time. And obviously the answer is that yes, you absolutely belong here, and we are a better country for it.
Well, he made that clear. Kana Whitworth, thanks for that story. That was great. And Jose Hernandez will be watching along with so many others when just hours from now, the Perseverance rover will be hopefully landing safely for one of the most ambitious missions in the history of space travel. Now, NASA hopes that the Perseverance can find evidence of ancient life on Mars, but again, it first has to land safely, and NASA scientists call that process 7 minutes of terror. Here's a closer look.
Mars is a graveyard of spacecraft.
While the scientists see a magnificent sight seeking the signs of past life, I see danger.
One flaw in the entire process, and that could be the end of the mission.
Failure is a real possibility.
We call it the 7 minutes of terror because it takes approximately 7 minutes for the spacecraft to make it from the top of the Martian atmosphere to safely wheels on the ground. But it's terrifying because the spacecraft has to manage that descent stage all by itself. We come screaming into the Mars atmosphere at around 5.5 kilometers per second. That's around 12 to 13,000 miles per hour.
And that's fast. It's so fast that we could burn up in the atmosphere if we didn't have our aeroshell, our heat shield.
If for some reason our thermal protection system fails, things on the inside will overheat and the structure will overheat, which would lead to a bad day.
That process of entry slows us all the way down to about 500 miles an hour. But that's still not slow enough to land on the surface of Mars. So we have to open up a parachute.
We're deploying the largest supersonic planetary parachute ever used.
we're going almost twice the speed of sound when we deploy that parachute. So it's a very violent opening.
It gives us a neck-snapping 10+ Gs of deceleration.
Perseverance is the first mission to land with its eyes open. Perseverance will have a new technology called terrain relative navigation, which will actually let it see where it is as it's descending on the parachute.
It's still going too fast to land under this giant 70-foot parachute.
So Perseverance will jettison the parachute and then come down on a set of rockets.
About 65 feet above the surface of Mars, we do the sky crane maneuver. We actually lower the rover below its jet backpack and then place it gently on the surface.
Sky crane has only been used once. I don't like the odds of only having done things once. We are always careful to make sure that we don't assume that just because it worked once that it will work again. It'll certainly be a tremendous relief for my team and me personally when we touch down safely. We know that everyone's depending on us.
7 minutes of terror. We've got full coverage of the mission to Mars today at 3:30 and 10 p.m. Eastern right here on ABC News Live. And the nation's racial reckoning is drawing new attention to something you may not have heard of: Black Sign Language. When we come back, the unique form of sign language shedding light on how Black Americans communicate. We'll be right back. The racial reckoning that has gripped this country for the past year is now shining a light on a unique form of communication. Black American Sign Language was born out of oppression, and now a group of activists is fighting to preserve what they call signing black. Kira Phillips has more.
Let us not wallow in the valley of despair.
From the footsteps of Martin Luther King Jr. at the Lincoln Memorial.
And so even though we face the difficulties of today and tomorrow, I still have a dream.
To the fingertips of J.C. Smith.
It is a dream deeply rooted in the American dream.
You are witnessing the Black Deaf Dream.
I have a dream that one day this nation will rise up and live out the true meaning of its creed.
In a language.
We hold these truths to be self-evident, that all men are created equal.
In a moment.
I have a dream that one day, even in the state of Mississippi,
empowered by these significant signs of our time.
From every mountainside, let freedom ring.
And it's been a long time coming.
How did the speech inspire you?
Well, the speech inspired me as a Black deaf man living in this world, knowing that opportunities may not be granted to me. And every day, I knew that I had to work 3 or 4 times harder to really get those opportunities that I wanted.
And not only would J.C. Smith get what he wanted, he would become a part of a movement to celebrate and preserve a language born out of oppression and segregation.
Why is preserving Black American Sign Language so important to you now?
Because it's our language. It's our gestures. It's our vibes. It's how we communicate, how we're able to talk.
Signing Black.
I'm down with that. Oh, you are fierce.
Much like Black history, Black American Sign Language grew from the roots of racism.
Ain't no power like the power of the people.
And when this country witnessed the recent racial reckoning, young Black signers took to social media to highlight the history of a language that has been suppressed for decades. The first American school for the deaf opened in 1817, but Black children were not allowed, so they had to create their own schools and their own way of communicating. Dr. Carolyn McCaskill is a professor at Gallaudet, the prestigious university for the deaf in Washington, D.C. At the age of 5, her only option for learning how to communicate was at the Alabama School for the Negro Deaf and Blind.
When you learned Black American Sign Language, was that freedom for you?
I did get that sense of freedom from being able to incorporate who I was and how I wanted to communicate.
But that freedom forged another challenge: integration. Black and white deaf students were finally sharing classrooms, but not a common language. Black American Sign Language was different from American Sign Language. In order to survive, Carolyn had to learn the white way.
I remember you telling me white is right.
Yep, white is right. That's what I thought. That was what was prevalent. That was the thinking. So I learned that. I learned how to sign that way, and I actually put to the side the way I knew to communicate, to sign. And my friends, my black friends, would say, "You're signing different, Carolyn." And you're signing like you're white. And I remember not liking that. I wanted to keep my way, my black way of communicating, the way I would sign.
And she did. Voted most ambitious, this honor student conquered communication through code switching.
So when I was with white people, I would sign that way. And then when I was with black deaf people, I would communicate a different way.
How did that feel?
Oh, that felt so free to me. It felt good to just communicate. That was who I was. That was my culture. That was my identity.
A life, language, and labor of love, all part of Dr. McCaskill's new book and her new role as founding director of Gallaudet's first ever Center for Black Deaf Studies.
Let's have some fun. Show me some signs in ASL and BASL.
So this would be an ASL. I would say stop playing.
Stop playing.
In BASL, I would sign it this way.
Are you tripping? Are you tripping? I love that.
Her protege, football star, and Black Student Union leader, J.C. Smith, by her side.
Show me some of your favorite signs in BASL, okay?
You can say, "That's nice. Nice car."
But we probably gonna think, ooh, tight.
Ooh, that thing tight.
It's more flavor. Okay. Oh,
a little salt on there.
A little salt.
It's a culture I was taught to respect decades ago when my grandfather rejected segregation in the 1940s as dean of the Michigan School for the Deaf. Also inspiring my mom to prepare teachers of the deaf and become a fierce advocate for equal rights.
I wanted to make sure that the deaf black kids in my class were treated the same as the white kids and given the same opportunities. And then later on, I became a professor at the university, and I was preparing teachers, and I wanted my students to have the same sort of feeling about equity and equality and treating people with respect.
When we allow freedom to reign.
Equality, J.C. Smith dreamed of.
Every state and every city.
Equality, Dr. Carolyn McCaskill created.
Part of it is to preserve the history and the language and the culture of our people and the black deaf experience.
Hands that speak volumes.
Free at last, free at last. Thank God Almighty, I'm free at last.
Kira Phillips, thank you for that report. And that does it for this ABC News Live update. I am Diane Macedo. Remember, ABC News Live is here for you all day with the latest news, context, and analysis.
Hi, everyone. George Stephanopoulos here. Thanks for checking out the ABC News YouTube channel. If you'd like to get more videos, show highlights, and watch live event coverage, click on the right over here to subscribe to our channel. And don't forget to download the ABC News app for breaking news alerts. Thanks for watching.